An investment banker, a skateboard designer, and an internist walked out of a bar. No, it's not a joke, it's the start of my review of the 2015 Rolls-Royce Ghost. Those three professionals were joined by a hospital administrator in my review car. The Salamanca blue sedan was gorgeous. Now, before I picked them up, I had been stuck in traffic for 2 hours while drinking coffee and bottled water. One of the reasons was that being the most untrendy person you'll meet who is just shy of a fanny pack and cargo shorts, I had no idea that a second standard hotel had opened up in New York. The English accented Rolls-Royce guidance machine guided me to was next to the new Whitney Museum of Art, which was nowhere near the one where my friends were downing $20 drinks and getting more and more annoyed with me. By the time I found my friends, I was more interested in finding a bathroom. While I raced to the WC, my friends, who aren't exactly Larry, Daryl, and Daryl, were taking selfies in front of the Rolls-Royce, especially the handmade grill with the Spirit of Ecstasy atop it. By the way, when you park and lock the Rolls, the flying lady disappears into her own panic room and locks the door. I think she's rightfully afraid of being kidnapped. Eventually, after running the gauntlet of buzzed millennials, texting and posing, I made my way back to the Ghost. My friends had gotten themselves into the car and were swaddled in the leather interior and touching the fine wood and metal surfaces as if they were trying to read a braille language that only the very rich can speak. On the smooth ride over bumpy streets, each passenger had detailed questions about the Rolls-Royce. How does that night vision system work? Are those people actually getting x-rayed? How many cylinders are under the hood? How much is this VIP lounge on wheels? Here are some of the answers. The people are not being x-rayed. The computer in the Rolls-Royce figures out who is a pedestrian and highlights them for you as a potentially hazardous object. The number of cylinders under the hood are an almost decadent 12. Those dozen workers under the hood are a thirsty bunch, consuming enough gasoline to earn a $2,100 gas guzzler tax. The Ghost will make tree huggers blanch with a rating of 13 miles per gallon in the city, 21 on the highway. While the truly amazing suspension and steering in the Ghost can make most potholes appear as apparitions, gas stations may be a more frequent sight. The fuel tank holds only 21.8 gallons. For a vehicle that includes massaging front and rear seats, Rolls-Royce may wish to consider alleviating the slight pain of having to stop for petrol so often by adding a larger tank. An extra 10 or 15 gallon capacity would be a welcome option. Maybe Rolls-Royce is taking a much bigger tank into consideration for the SUV that they're reportedly working on. The orchestra under the hood provides effortless power. The 563 horsepower Rolls-Royce silently glides from 0 to 60 in 4.8 seconds without breaking a sweat. Now, while that's sports car fast, for what is essentially a big family car, the Rolls-Royce is amazingly light on its feet. While I don't know if I would want to take the Rolls-Royce out on the track, I did enjoy the next best thing. Several trips on both the New Jersey Turnpike and the pockmarked streets of Gotham. During our time on the highway with the Rolls-Royce, we used the ample power more than once to avoid a collision. Here's why. I kept feeling like people were aiming at me while I was driving the Rolls-Royce. And actually, I suspect that they were. Professional drivers have a saying, your car goes where your eyes go. If you look at the crash on the track or the highway up ahead, you'll run right into it. The same thing seemed to happen to me with the Rolls-Royce. People would stare at the Blue Beauty and drift towards me at 65 miles an hour. While the same thing happened in city traffic, I tried to warn the other drivers by beeping at them, but apparently honking and Downton Abbey don't mix very well. I had to lean on the double R in the middle of the steering wheel to make this super polite and super quiet vehicle make a sound. I guess honking and gesturing is something Rolls-Royce chauffeurs are just supposed to avoid, while captains of industry in the back seat sit back, relax, and enjoy the conveyance of kings. Either that or the horn's just too hard to honk. Something else that's too hard to operate is the shift lever. The delicate column mounted shifter made me feel as if I was using a fine fountain pen to change gears. The driver must push a button at the end of the thin stalk to ensure the ghost wouldn't vanish like a ghost after the driver gets out of the sedan on a hill. In case wealthy Dagwood Bumpstead is in his traditional hurry to get to work and jumps out of the Rolls-Royce, forgetting to hit the park button, there is an interlock in the door which will prevent the rolls from rolling away if the driver's door is open. I dwell on all this in part because of the parking attendant in New York who needed a 20-minute tutorial on how to drive and park the Rolls-Royce in his rather cramped underground garage. The attendant told me he had recently parked both a Ferrari and a Lamborghini, but my Rolls-Royce was making him nervous. By the way, I love saying my Rolls-Royce. The jewelry quality dials on the instrument panel do not include a tachometer. Instead of a tach, there's a dial which informs the driver of the percentage of reserve power. The brand power, however, of the Rolls-Royce is a relatively well-kept secret these days. 3 out of my 4 passengers on the night of the party were able to afford the car that starts at about $287,000, but it was not on the shopping list of any of them. In the time it took for me to drive my Rolls-Royce from Soho to Midtown, the guests were converted. At the party, the Rolls-Royce was a more popular topic of conversation than the stunning 21st floor terraced view of the cruise ships along the Hudson. That's saying something. The only thing old, stiff, and stodgy in the 2015 Rolls-Royce was the driver, me. Unlike the flashy and impractical vehicles purchased by some of the newly rich, the Rolls-Royce is about as subtle as a Savile Row suit. By the way, I think it was Nancy Reagan who said, "Nouveau is better than no riche at all," and so who am I to judge? Options on our test car included a $54,000 feature package, $700 for built-in Rolls-Royce umbrellas that deploy from inside the door, veneered tray tables which deploy to allow backseat passengers to delicately dine on anything including Grey Poupon. But rather than focus on those of us who are old enough to remember the commercial, Rolls-Royce is more likely to focus on the folks who have made millions by inventing an app to help people find fancy mustard on their smartphone. While the more than 212-inch long Rolls-Royce is undoubtedly large, it did fit in my garage, if not my budget. A longer wheelbase version is available, which stretches the Rolls by another 7 inches. I always think it's a good idea to buy the longer wheelbase of any luxury car. To the uninitiated, a 7-inch stretch may not seem like a big deal, but if those extra inches are all used for the rear seat legroom, trust me, your tall kids, your tall boss, or your tall friends will appreciate it. The total price as tested for my Salamanca Blue 2015 Rolls-Royce Ghost was $382,825. Sadly, when I arrived at Newark Airport to return the Rolls-Royce, I boarded what felt like my pumpkin to San Francisco. At the end of the flight, there was another car story for me, but no one with a glass slipper. For Real World Test Drive, I'm Grant Winter reporting.